So let's take a few moments to talk about lighting. So in my viewport shading, I am going to change to rendered view. And we'll see that there's not much happening at all. Now part of that is that this light is out and away from the scene and largely blocked. So I'm going to grab it and I'm going to move it over. And we can see that there's lighting. I'm going to move it down actually. Something like that. It's very strong, so I'm going to take the power down from 1,000 watts to a few hundred. That done, I think I'm going to change the coloration a little bit to maybe a blue. So we're still getting some light, but it's more of a filtered light. We can mess around with some of these other settings as well, although quite frankly I think I'm going to leave it as it is. I can also, if I want to, change the type of lighting right here. So if I wanted this point light to be sunlight or something, well, we can see the sunlight is extremely intense. Or a spotlight or an area light. We'll go through those briefly right now. But for the moment, I'll put that back on point light. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a couple more lights to the scene. So I can just do a Shift A, and I'll go down to light. And in this case, I'm going to select a area light. And I'm going to grab that and move it back a bit to maybe about here. Now the area light doesn't seem to be doing much. I'm going to actually move it up a bit. And one of the things is that the power is set at just 10 watts. So on something of this scale, well, 10 watts is not very much, so let's just go ahead and put that up to a few hundred. And we can see that there's some faint lighting starting to happen. I'll take it up a little bit more yet. And we can see that it is definitely starting to have an effect. Now the other thing I can do is I can adjust the angle of this simply by grabbing the base of the gizmo where the small circle was. Or of course doing it more traditionally by adjusting the location and rotation here, or by using the gizmos. I think with this though, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the color of the light as well, and this time maybe I'll do sort of a green to it so that we get a little bit of mood lighting. So let's do one more, and I will add a spotlight. Again, let's move it back from the origin point where it was. Let's move it over just a bit so that it's roughly where the bag is. I'm just going to push period to sort of zoom in on that area. Back out just a bit. And just like with the previous lights, the power is down at around 10 watts. So let's take that up rather substantially. Okay, we can see that there's definitely a spot that's happening here. I think I'm going to grab this gizmo and move it a little bit so that we're getting it actually hitting on the bag. And let's take the intensity of the light up a little bit more. And I'm going to push 0 to get into camera view. So yeah, something like that kind of works. Move it over just a bit more. I can also adjust some of these other settings, like for example this radius, or better yet, the size is set so that this is basically a 45-degree cone. Well, if I want to, I can narrow or widen the scope of that so that it takes up sort of a larger area. And this blend will make the edge of the light softer if I want to do something like that. And for my purposes, I think I'm going to leave this kind of like this. And what I might do now is put in 1 or 2 more lights to maybe highlight a couple of other areas in the scene. So I think I'm just going to do a Shift D, and I'm going to grab this light and move it up. And then I think I'm going to hide my water back for the moment until I get my lighting kind of situated. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this part of the lighting gizmo, and I'm just going to move this so that the light is shining on this pillar. And maybe move the pillar in a little bit. I could try adjusting some of the settings here as well. But I think for my purposes, something like that is just fine. And maybe I'll do it one more time. I will do a Shift D. And I will move the duplicate light over here. So that we get something like this. I'm going to turn my water back on. I'm going to push 0 to sort of zoom in with my camera to where my camera would be. And yes, I think something like that adds a little bit of drama. There's tweaking that could be done. But for the moment, something like this definitely adds a little bit of drama and brings the eye to certain parts of the scene.